Alright, this video is going to focus on the alarm system. So, game objects also inherit from alarmables. I just have a not infinite number of alarms, so I only have 3. So the idea is that there's alarm 0, alarm 1, and alarm 2, and you can implement those however you want. You say, hey, I want alarm 1 to go off in 3 seconds, and it will do that, and then whatever code is in alarm 1, your alarm 1 function for that game object will execute. So each alarmable has a array of registration data, and it's only 3 long, or however many alarms I have, which is 3. And it holds the registration states and the registration commands and the delete ref. So, in terms of how you register, so when you submit your registration, you get the registration data, the relevant registration data for that ID, for that alarm ID, and then you submit that command to the scene registration broker, and set the time for that command. So anyway, in the registration command, you have a pointer to the alarmable, the alarm ID, and the time in the future that you want this thing to go off. So it goes through the broker, goes back to registration, and says to the scene, hey, I want to register this alarm. So once again, the scene has a alarmable manager right here, and you go through this register function right here, passing in all that stuff, and we go back to the alarmable manager. So here is the alarmable manager. Basically, each scene has an alarmable manager. An alarmable manager has a map where it maps times as floats, absolute time, to an alarm event. An alarm event is a pair of an alarmable object and a alarm ID. So which one of the alarms for that alarmable object do we care about? So basically the timeline is in chronological order. When you register, you get the absolute time that you want to register for. So if you want to register for 3 seconds in the future, but 20 seconds have already passed in the game, then you want to insert yourself into the map at timestamp 23. So that way everything is in order in this timeline. So now you're registered in this alarmable manager map in this timeline, and it has access to the particular alarmable that you are and which of your alarms you want to trigger when the time is right. So, when is the time right? In the scene updates, which happens every frame, you process all the alarms. So back to the alarmable manager, process alarms. You want to see how many alarms have been triggered in the past frame. So you start at the beginning of the timeline, and you loop through until your time is current time. So basically everything that's transpired, if any of those absolute times have passed in the last frame, you need to trigger those alarms. So here's the shenanigans for that. The actual trigger alarm event, is right here, which is right here. Passing the alarm ID, so then you just do a switch statement, whichever of the alarm IDs that alarm event cared about, you have to trigger the corresponding method that the user should have implemented. Yes. The other things that I added for alarmables was you can get the alarm time. So in the alarmable manager, basically it just, you make sure that you're already registered, and so then you can, using that delete ref that you saved, find the entry into the timeline immediately and just get that time, calculate the time left on the alarm based on whatever time it is currently in the game, and return that so that you can get how much time is left on the alarm. And then the other thing I added was you can set the alarm time, so if an alarm is already registered, you can actually adjust when you want it to go off. So you give it a time offset, like, hey, I actually want it to be 3 seconds earlier or 3 seconds later. Once again, you have to make sure that that alarm is already registered. And then in set alarm time, you have to do some checks to make sure that if you're at time 25 and you say, or your alarm is registered to go off at time 25, but you want it to be, you say, hey, I want this to go off 30 seconds earlier. Well, you can't, that's not a legal operation. I don't know if I explained that well, but I think you know what I mean. So you can set the alarm time. It actually deletes the entire entry from the timeline, and then it reinserts the new time, the new adjusted time into the timeline at the correct time. Oof, I think I'm rambling. So if I go down, my example for this is my enemy spawner. So at the beginning of when the enemy spawner is created, it submits for alarm registration, and it also does all these key events so I can test things out. When the alarm goes off, it basically spawns a new enemy if there's not enough enemies in the field, and then it resets the alarm for 5 seconds, so the alarm keeps infinitely resetting itself to go off every 5 seconds. And it's alarm 0. And then for my little test, I have all these key presses, so if I press key 0, I can see how much time is left on the alarm. I can also add time to the alarm with the left bracket, subtract time from the alarm with the left bracket, 2 seconds, add 7 seconds with the right bracket, or press minus to just cancel the alarm completely, which is just doing the deregistration. So from my demo earlier, you will have seen it in action. So we have to wait 5 seconds, and a tank should spawn right here, and then another 5 seconds, one will spawn over here. In the bottom in my console, oops, I'm actually gonna restart. In my console down here, you'll see the messages. So I'm going to actually add time. So you can see down at the bottom of my screen, I added some time. Now it's at 14 seconds. Now it's at 19 seconds. If I press 0, I can see that time is ticking away and that the enemy will spawn in now 10 seconds. If I press, I'm going to add a bit more. If I press left, then I can subtract 2 seconds at a time. So now, oh, I canceled the alarm accidentally. I pressed the cancel. But I'll just show really quick that even if I do all that stuff, the alarm will actually trigger. So I'm going to add like a ton of time, and then I'm going to subtract a ton of time. And you did see that when we hit 0, the guy did spawn, and everything's back to normal. So anyway, you can do all those adjustments. You can register for alarm events, and a lot of different things in my game are registered for alarms, so like multiple alarms work, no problem. My bullets die after a certain amount of time. In the second level, I have plane spawning. So yeah, alarms seem to be working okay. Okay, I think that's all I got for my video.